Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Noxcast, your Equinox News Recap podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Hope. I'm the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
Now I'm Chloe, the news editor, and today we're joined by Justin, our student life editor.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be back. I was here last year, so it's cool to be back again.
Thanks for coming on. Justin, you have been here before, but you're also in a different role. So now you're
Yes.
student life editor. How about you talk a little bit about what you do on a weekly basis? What does student life coverage kind of look like?
Yeah, so student life editor is sort of same responsibilities as other section editors that I'm sure has been talked about before, but it's mainly focused around students, student activities, student profiles, student opinions. So it's a lot of event coverage, student involvement events, like Greek life is included, so that's fun. And like I said, student opinions, talking to students, finding out what they think about different topics. And yeah, just anything that involves student life on campus. So it's really fun section to be a part of.
Yeah, I definitely think like student life is a big part of what we do because our tagline is the student voice of Keene State since 1929. So a big part of that is to elevate students' opinions on various topics, like whatever people are thinking about, people are talking about on campus. One of the ones that we did like semi recently was about staying healthy on campus with like all the sicknesses going around this semester and people sort of giving their like tips on how to avoid getting sick or just to stay healthy in general. So that was a pretty interesting article from our staffer Tammy. But that's just like one example of many different times that we try to ask students what their thoughts are on a given topic. I always also compare it to like if you've ever read a lifestyle magazine, that's sort of like a big idea of like what you can expect in terms of what that coverage looks like. It's very like focused around again like student life, so the lives of students. But something exciting that we've relaunched recently that used to be a part of the paper a few years back was the series Sound Off, which instead of doing like an article, it's more just like getting like one sentence like quote answers from people on like a straightforward question. So with the help of our staffer Dakota and then consultation from our director Elijah, making the graphic and then sort of communicating that with you, Justin, we were able to bring that back in the most recent edition. And so the topic was, what's your favorite DC food? And we got a few different answers on that. Nice little variety, even though it was just 3 to start, but we're hoping to keep it going. And it's a nice way to also just like showcase not only the student like quote, but also given it's like a picture of them right next to it. So it's like having student faces in the paper also, and like these are real people saying these things. I think is really important.
I definitely agree. I think it's just fun in general to ask students of that, and I know we've done so many papers and articles about the DC, so I think that's a great question to ask them to begin with because there's so many different opinions you can get out of students regarding that, and very colorful range of answers as well regarding that issue.
Yeah, I was very excited about the idea of bringing this back. It just seemed like a really fun thing, and I'm excited to sort of come up with ideas of questions to ask. Like I came up with the idea for favorite DC food. I thought it'd be fun. I have a couple other ideas, and I also, I'd be open to like working with Dakota or whoever's doing it to come up with different ideas of whatever seems like the most fun at the time. So I'm definitely excited about it. I also had fun sort of designing it in the paper. So that's really cool. Check it out.
Yeah, and we're also going to post it on web as well, sort of in the same vein as like a photo slider. But if you're interested in doing a sound off of your own and asking students their thoughts on something, or just writing, reporting for student life in general, you could reach out to Justin, J. Dearborn at kcequinox.com. Always be plugging. So feel
Yes,
free to reach out.
please
It is
do.
it is really fun. I think all the sections are fun, but I think student life is as well. So you know what? Check it out. But given that, we can just jump right into our regular recap here. So, in the news section, our top story was another story from our staffer Sam, who talked about in this article the recent leadership changes in KC Dining. The director of dining services, Patrick Freely, left somewhat abruptly a couple weeks ago. It was announced at a student assembly meeting um, that he was no longer with Chartwells, and Bobby Walker, who was already part of the leadership team there, sort of took over the duties on an interim basis for a little bit. But actually, at the assembly meeting this past Tuesday, just a couple days ago, um, it was announced that they had already made a hire for that position, someone named Sam D'Angelo. So sort of a relatively quick turnaround on the leadership change. So I think it's positive that folks won't be spread as thin and that we were able to get someone new in there pretty soon. I'm excited to see what new changes they might bring or what their sort of vision will be. And I'm sure we'll have some more stuff coming out about that relatively soon as well.
I know I was very surprised when I heard the news that Freely was leaving. I've spoken with him multiple times over the course of the last year, since the last inspection at the DC. And it was just crazy to find out that he's gone. And I've spoken to Bobby as well. I know she has a lot of experience in the field, that she's worked very closely with Patrick. And I'm glad they found a replacement so soon. That wasn't up in the air for very long at all, as we made the edits on Tuesday night about it. But I'm just glad they found someone so quickly.
Yeah, I'm not as all over the DC coverage as Chloe is. She's sort of kind of our little expert on the DC. But I definitely would echo what you guys said. I just think it's exciting to sort of have someone new involved in the leadership side and see what kind of changes might be in store. I don't know. Exciting opportunity, I would say.
Maybe they should take a look at the sound off and see what students want more of.
Yes, they
Just
should. They should actually just look at all the student life sections while they're at it.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So, I mean, I don't really have much else to add there. Some like relatively positive news. It kind of started off as like what's going to happen, but that's sort of the nature of it, where like things happen so quickly. I mean, Tuesday nights we're putting together the paper, and then got that piece of news. We got to change it because but we're one of the first people to get the word out about that too. So I was pretty happy to be able to include that the fact that the person was hired. So yeah, but now moving on to our top story in region and state this week is a piece from Sophia Kashmiri at the Keene Sentinel about this contentious city council vote on this plan when it comes to protected bike lanes. As part of the downtown infrastructure plan, they're planning to add more protected bike lanes to the downtown area. The project itself, like the infrastructure project, is slated to, I think, finally begin construction this upcoming summer. So still not for a ways away, but this motion was about sort of the regulations, or I guess limitations, when it comes to the bike lanes. And they're saying that it will be limited to non-motorized vehicles and to speeds no faster than 8 miles per hour. So I'm assuming a lot of the contention there was sort of trying to balance the needs of like drivers going through downtown versus those with bikes. I think a big part of the downtown is sort of the walkability aspect and like the ability to use other transportation besides just cars. And especially, I thought it was a good pick for the top story just because there are students who use bikes and also don't have access to cars on campus. So definitely like an important topic, I think, to our readership.
Yeah, and I don't bike around regularly, but one of my friends has a bike on campus, and he uses it both to get to class and to go downtown. So I think that'll be very good news for him to hear. And I think it's just a good thing to have bike lanes and to have them protected. Um, I know that not all drivers stop or look where they're going in regards both to walkers and to people who are biking or on other forms of transportation. So I think having those lanes would be a good way to at least keep people safe to a degree.
Yeah. My truth is that I don't ride a bike, and I also don't have a car here, so I'm not, you know, traveling around downtown often, but every once in a while I do. And obviously I agree it's a good idea to put in protections for bikers. I would be a little bit concerned because I already think that the sort of downtown rotary is sort of scary to drive through as it is. It's kind of a ominous sight, but I don't know. Like we'll see what happens. Hopefully, it doesn't make it too and any more complicated. I hope.
No, yeah, I think like it just sort of demonstrates like some of the importance of like paying somewhat attention to like what your local city council is doing if you're like from out of state or like not from like the Keene area. Like things that happen in Keene, like these votes and stuff, do matter in terms of like if you are someone who'd be impacted by this, who like does background or something. I just would encourage people to either like read this article or like look at future city council coverage, because these decisions do matter like on the local level, even if you're like not here the entire year or anything. But yeah, I would encourage, if you're watching, to check out that article because there's a lot of in-depth discussion about what that sort of meeting looked like, and it was an 8-7 vote, so very close, with that. But let's jump right into our student life top story now, which was coverage from our staffer Dakota, of the Phi Sigma Sigma 5K, which is an annual event that they hold. The sorority holds for charity. So this is a fundraiser, and they sort of not only have people from Phi Sig participate in this, but also some folks from other sororities, and then also from fraternities as well sometimes join in. I know this year that they did. And it's just a nice little event to sort of, it's one of their bigger events to support their philanthropies. So, they definitely promote it a lot, and it's a big part of what they do. I think, in terms of their prominence on campus. If you know about Phi Sig, you probably know about the 5K.
Yeah, and I know I spoke to this the other week, but I think it's so great to see sororities and even fraternities sometimes do stuff like this. I think it's a great way to show that they have a positive impact on campus and that these student-run organizations can really make a difference. And that's just going to really make someone's day what they did there. And it just makes me very happy to see.
Yeah, this is one of those events I was kind of talking about, the Greek life events that are really fun to cover. Even though I didn't write this story, I've been to a lot of Greek life events that are sort of like philanthropies or just stuff like this that are very fun. And this event in particular, I believe their philanthropy is for a school. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. So obviously, great cause, great event. It was very cold. This was last Sunday, so I remember it was a very cold day. But they pushed through for the good cause. So very fun event and great story from Dakota. Shout out, double feature for Dakota.
Right, yeah. I mean, props to everybody for sticking it out. And I do think it's important to sort of, especially like with a philanthropy with a more local connection, that the money goes back into like the local community is really nice in particular. But yeah, good stuff. With that, let's move on to our editorial this week, which was about the importance of Keene State remaining a liberal arts institution. So if you don't know, liberal arts is sort of the idea, it's like a Western idea of education where diversity of programs is important. With Keene State, something that we've strived to be for a long time is a liberal arts institution, because we have not only arts programs, we have like fine arts, but we also do have like sciences, hard and soft sciences when it comes to like sociology, political science, but then we also have biology and like chemistry, and just a really big diversity of programs. And it's sort of difficult to sort of square that with a lot of the faculty who are leaving voluntarily, but also will that put into danger any of the programs that were already small to begin with? Trying to keep the diversity of programs with a relatively small pool of faculty to pull from to teach these classes. Is there any danger of losing that identity, or that identity getting muddled as sort of us being the liberal arts institution? Because, Plymouth is sort of known a little bit more for their STEM programs, and like business and stuff. And you look at UNH and they're more of like a research school, which is also, we talked about in the editorial how that's also valid and fine. But having that diversity and having the option for students to be able to pursue what they want to pursue. And I think like the community of Keene State with students from all different backgrounds is really important to what we do. And also just touching on former President Treadwell had a huge commitment to maintaining the liberal arts identity. So, we thought it was important to just harp on, now that it's almost been a month since Burks has become interim president, that we still do think it's important to have the liberal arts here.
Yeah, and I know all of us said this at the meeting, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't a liberal arts college. That was the main reason that we came here in the first place. And it's what really sets Keene apart from all the other colleges here in New Hampshire. I mean, speaking as someone who came from Connecticut, I'm like a 2.5 hour drive away, longer with worse traffic. And it's like, I would never have chosen this school if it weren't for the liberal arts programs, for the journalism programs, for the writing programs. And to try and take that away is really depriving Keene of the one thing that really makes it stand out. And I think that's just a big mistake to even consider doing that in the first place. And you're gonna lose people, and you're gonna lose like the identity of the college.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Chloe just said. That was perfect. I'm also an out-of-state student. I'm from Maine. I live about 4 hours away from here. So long drive. And yeah, I agree with exactly what she said. I think Keene State College is the public liberal arts school for New Hampshire. Like that's the whole brand. And I just wonder if the liberal arts part is gone and it's just Public College of New Hampshire, why do people want to go here as much? It's like that's what makes it stand out, like Chloe said. So definitely agree.
Yeah, I think we had a really good conversation overall about this because it's something that a lot of people are like having conversations about, like, should it be something to shy away from? And obviously we came to the conclusion that no, we shouldn't. And a lot of the conversations are revolving around like what will make the state legislator happy, or like, reverse any of the cuts that they did or give us more funding back because, we'll do something that they think is more agreeable or better. And I think something that we also touched on with that is like, will the state legislator, like at least as it's composed right now, will they ever like truly be happy with like Keene State's identity? Even if you do keep, making changes, it's really going to be like shifting the goalposts. And it's not really going to get to a situation where they're going to suddenly reverse course because a lot of what the legislator has been focused on is sort of trades-based education. Community college system had level funding. They didn't really give any cuts to community college system because they believe more in like you go straight into the workforce or you go to college with like the express purpose of doing these more, quote unquote in demand jobs. And I also want to touch on like how it is kind of like demeaning to people pursuing certain careers to say that like what they want to do isn't important to society. I think like I take like personal issue with that because I think like what everyone does is important in its own way. And again, like the interactivity of all the people from different programs at Keene State is sort of what makes it so special, having people from different areas of expertise, and to think that that could be something that would even be in the conversation of like potentially losing or shying away from is disappointing.
Yeah, and I think that these programs are a lot more important than people give them credit for. You have the arts, you have writing, you have political science, you have music, and people make those out to just not be important fields. You can't get a career in them, according to some people. But some of the most famous people in our history have been poets, have been writers, have been musicians. I mean, you have Beethoven, you have Galileo, you have Mark Twain. Like, you have writers, you have poets, you have musicians that everyone can know and can name. And I think when you try and take away those things, you're just depriving people of what is really a good job opportunity. And it's a field that entertains other people. It's a field that's always existed. And they're just trying to keep people uneducated at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's interesting because the people who, make these laws and they, clearly they're trying to like push back on, liberal arts kind of fields. Like, they find entertainment. They listen to the radio. I don't know, they look at art. They do all that kind of stuff. So, if you want to have that, there has to be people who know how to do that and are trained and are good at what they do. So you have to, let people explore what they want to do because there's like you said, there's a place for all of those kinds of things.
Yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to say about it was just that I really liked the graphic that our art director Elijah did for this one. It's like a parody of Pink Floyd's The Wall album cover. If if you don't know, then you know the song and sort of there's a critique of like the education system back in the day of England and sort of like how school puts you, you know, at least at that time, puts students into like you know like they're bricks in the wall. Like you know they're not unique. They don't have their individual identities. They're sort of just serving a purpose for like the state. And that's sort of, you know, the analogy that we're making where it's like the state legislator kind of is viewing college students as like bricks in a wall and not like looking at it as more of like a broad thing where it's like people have different purposes and like what they want to do. And that's good. And it's actually like should be encouraged to pursue all these different fields and not just, you know, make people do something that they'll be miserable doing. So I thought it was a really nice graphic depiction of what we were getting at with that. But with that being said, I wanted to jump into our arts and entertainment top story on a little bit of a lighter note. This is a nice little profile piece of the general manager of WKNH, senior Patrick Garcia, who also is involved in a couple other things. He is the social media manager for Keene State Media Productions, as well as a tech team lead in the Student Center, and he is also a film major. So someone who's really like invested in the media spaces on campus, definitely very well known on like the technical side of things, and someone who like cares a lot about the physical aspect of like the equipment, and then also like with radio, like you know physical music and stuff like that. So I thought some of the quotes were really nice about like there's just like some sort of like shared, I feel like, love for media in general. Like again, like we're part of the media spaces on campus, the Equinox. So you know, I've spoken with Patrick just, you know, from like one org leader to another. I think he's a really nice guy, and I've appreciated talking to him and working on like collaborations and stuff. So, you know, a nice little piece sort of highlighting that and getting some commentary also from people who work with him and also had him as a student.
No, I think it's incredible. And I love any story that just profiles one person and we get to actually talk about them, we get to know about them. And I think it was good coverage about it as well. Yeah, I think it's just great.
Yeah, I would agree. Before I was student life editor last year, I mainly wrote for A&E pretty much every single week, and my favorite kind of story always was those kinds of profile stories because I loved like sitting down with a person and like really trying to like dig into who they are and why they do what they do, and then talking to people around them about this person and you know who they are and what kind of you know energy they bring to a room. I think that's really interesting. And for this particular story, I have interviewed Patrick for a couple things, a couple stories as like an A&E reporter, and he was always a great guy, very willing to talk and polite and everything. So yeah, I love a profile story.
Yeah, I think it's also it just feels really good to make other students feel like they're appreciated and like seen. You know, that's like part of being like the student voice is making sure that people don't feel left behind or like they're not being recognized for like the work that they do because, you know, it's a lot of these people who are working behind the scenes, you know, if you think about something like the tech team, like people in like the back of the room at every event who are like making sure that like the lights and the sound are all good, like it's easy to overlook things like that and you like take them for granted, but you know people, you know, students in particular who like do this work day to day, week by week, I think should be like applauded and appreciated on campus. So I think it was nice to sort of get a look into how he views things, and his passion for the media spaces as someone who also shares a similar passion. So good stuff from our staffer Michael on that one. And then moving on, lastly, to our top story in sports, which was about the cross country team's coaching staff winning an LEC award. Best coaching staff due to their efforts in assisting student athletes on those teams, from the men's team getting the first in the LEC to the women's team getting the second, and then moving on to regionals. And then I know Tyler Blasky individually moving on to nationals as well. So really demonstrating that success sort of year over year now. really important to have like a good coaching staff as well as like a good group of student athletes. But I really did appreciate in this article that there was like some quotes from people on the staff talking about how like it's like nice to like have like the recognition or like the award, but then at the same time like they couldn't do what they do as well if not for the students. So I feel like them reflecting it back on the students was also a really nice thing to hear.
Yeah, and not to sound like a broken record, but I think everything we've said about the track team in the last few weeks has just all been so wonderful, and they've been doing such a great job. And I agree with you completely that highlighting the staff in particular is something that they probably don't get credit for a lot of the time. And I'm sure that meant their day to actually be interviewed and be able to give their opinion on it.
Yeah, I think I said this last time I was here, but sports not really my forte, not really my area of expertise. But I just say huge congratulations to the whole team and the coaching staff. It's a great accomplishment. So it makes the whole school proud.
Yeah, and we tried to have a little bit of a varied mix of content given, there's inevitably a lot of, a little bit more downbeat news and some like less positive things going on, but also there's always going to be something good to look out for. So that's why we have the whole paper and all the different sections, and you can look at sort of, these people are doing something good, these people are doing stuff for charity, this student is doing this and excelling really well. So I'm always happy to have some good news in sports. That's usually consistently the case. So really good stuff. But with that being said, that's been it for the recap. As always, I'd like to extend a special shout out to the composer of the music for Noxcast, our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, as well as the creator of the graphic for Noxcast, our very own art director, Elijah Fisher, and the editor of Noxcast, Noelle Hisgen. Until next time, I've been Nathan Hope, and thanks for watching.